Welcome to Watchmojo.com, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 superhero movie plot twists. Before we begin, we publish new content every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.
Well, if you have been on YouTube, there's pretty much a 100% chance that you have watched a video from Watchmojo, based right here in Montreal. The founder of Watchmojo is Karbasfrooshan. Hi, Ash. How you doing?
Very good. You can't run and you can't hide on YouTube from us, basically.
Well, you've got over 20 million subscribers on YouTube.
That's correct. We have 20 million subscribers on the core Watchmojo channel, and then if you include Miss Mojo, Watchmojo Espanol, Mojo Plays, Travels, we have actually 35 million.
When did you start to expand this? So you had that main brand Watchmojo. When did you say, hey, you know what? These videos are so hot in English, let's do it in another language.
There's always a Back to the Future effect. We actually started off very horizontal. So when we launched, the idea was to have like Arcade Mojo, Sound Mojo, and then I realized I was trying to boil the ocean. So we narrowed it down after we ran out of money, basically. And then we said, look, let's just double down, ground zero, this one brand Watchmojo. And then around 2012, I was sitting in Madison Square Park. I'd been rejected for like probably the 100th time. Everybody was telling me we were too broad, and we decided to go narrow. But people were like, you got to pick a vertical like beauty. Obviously, looking at me, you understand why we do that. Why are you laughing? I don't get it. But long story short, I think the ideal thing for us was to kind of recognize where we were really passionate about, we were really good, and that was ranking things. And we were we were fans of Seinfeld. And
was there a bit of luck in that? Like you did one, we played a top 10 video there. Like you did one top 10 video, and then it sort of said, hey, this is performing well, and we should go there? Like, how did you get there?
That's it. One, and then we retired. No, that's not how this works. No, there was a lot of luck, timing. But the first video we actually shot, not that we published it, was a top 10. We always did top 10s along with other things like biographies and interviews. But we always saw that the top 10s did better. And I won't lie, there was a part of me that said, I don't want to get cast as like the top 10 guy. But then I was like, you know what? Screw it. This is what the fans want. Give them what they want. This is what we like doing more. We got more joy out of like ranking moments from, shows and movies than some of the other. I mean, we had like 80 yoga videos at some point. Not to knock the yoga people, but I was like, we want to do top 10s. And then that's really when it took off. We put our head down. And I think part of it, people
What year is this now?
This is about 2012.
Okay.
So even though we launched we ran the company from 2006 to 2012, we really focused on YouTube in 2012. We had 10,000 subscribers, and then went to 100,000, a million. The night the Boston Red Sox won the World Series in 2013, we hit 1 million subscribers like 10 minutes later. Okay. And then 5 million, 10 million, and now 20 million.
20 million. And you've got your offices in Montreal.
Correct.
How many employees do you have now?
We have anywhere from like 50 to 70-ish. Most are here.
Yeah.
Not that the individual employees are just a number, but it's because some of them are not here. Some of them are in New York and LA and Europe. But by and large, we have about 55 people working right next to the Ubisoft building on Saint-Laurent.
And how much content do you produce now? How many is there like stated goals every day? You got to churn out this, or is it how do you?
I'd like to point out we don't have quotas.
If
you don't meet your quota, we don't cut off fingers. Obviously, we do have targets because my thinking is because we produce fun, light entertainment. If we're also running like a very laissez-faire, just hey, show up, and if you want to do a video, then nothing gets done. We produce probably about 5 videos on the core channel, and then if you include the others, we do about 10 videos per day, which is a lot of content. That's 10-minute videos that we're publishing every day.
So, like I mentioned, 20 million subscribers for the main channel on YouTube. Now you're up to 35 million overall. But that word there, YouTube, you're attached to YouTube. Like when you think Watchmojo, you think YouTube.
We are the house that YouTube built.
Yeah. So tell me about that, and the challenges and the questions you had to answer to yourself, like, do we do this alone on Watchmojo.com, or do we go to another partner? Like, how did you lead where you said, oh boy, YouTube's the perfect fit?
Well, we were part of the third wave of video producers who naively thought they could build their own web properties. And we realized very quickly that the world had moved from destinations to distribution platforms such as YouTube. And when we looked at the kind of market, YouTube was far and away the biggest, baddest player. Bad isn't good. Yeah. So we just said we have have to embrace it. Now, it's like, look at this cup of water. Is it half full or is it half empty, right? A lot of people criticize and whine about YouTube this and Facebook that. But the reality is, I can't be a hypocrite. We'd have 5 employees if we didn't embrace YouTube. The reason why we've grown to be this big is because YouTube is this awesome platform that reaches 2 billion people. And YouTube being a part of Google is just this tremendous once-in-a-generation opportunity, and we embraced it, and we wrote it. And yeah, it's hard. I had hair like Fabio when I started the business, and I mean, it is challenging because they do navigate sometimes and move, and then if you're a fly on a butt, you know, it's like...
So you're follically challenged not by choice, is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. It was a lifestyle decision I made. So it's good, but it comes with its set of challenges, but I wouldn't trade it for anything, to be honest with you.
When did you realize you had sort of secret sauce there on how to make videos that people watched on YouTube?
I realized early on that we were very good at producing videos as early as like 2006 and 2007. But the YouTube magic, frankly, yeah, at first we didn't have any mojo on YouTube because we didn't program for YouTube. Once we said, look, what's the audience? What do they want? How can we serve them? That's when I figured out that, you know what, by around 2013, that, hey, you know, we're onto something. Yeah. But I still think we're the unknown startup. Last year, PewDiePie, or 2 years ago, PewDiePie, the #1 YouTuber in the world, you know, he kind of roasted us and he's like, you know, if you don't know Watchmojo, it's like you don't know Jesus. And I was like, wow. And last week, you know, Rebecca, whose voice you heard at the intro, she was interviewing Spider-Man, and he's like, I'm a big fan. And we kind of forget sometimes that, hey, these 20 million subscribers are real people, and some of them are fans who are celebrities.
No, and this is sort of, you know, for stuff that's made here in Montreal, everyone has watched one of your videos.
But not everyone knows that we're in Montreal. And we never hid or promoted that. I'm a very proud Montrealer, but it was kind of like, you know, Montreal, there's something in the DNA apart from all these orange cones. It's, you know, we are the next in line after Cirque du Soleil, Juste pour Rire, and Vice Media as these entertainment exports that, you know, spawn out of the city and then kind of take over the world, so to speak.
When it comes to your videos, especially those top 10 lists, clearly, in order to do those top 10 lists, you rely on other people's content.
Absolutely.
And sort of the fair use of other people's content. But I can imagine it must be a constant struggle in trying to, you know, because there's all these big companies that are trying to make sure people don't use their other content. So how do you deal with those people that are they your partners? Are they frenemies? Like, and how do you interact with that? How do you deal with that problem of using other people's content to create your own?
Sure. So first and foremost, copyright is all about promoting the arts and sciences, and fair use also promotes the arts and sciences. So fair use, whether it's news, parody, satire, or commentary criticism, is basically an exemption to copyright. So the videos that we do are by and large, you know, commentary, mashup. So they pass certain tests and levels of transformativeness. But the legal aspect is just one element. The second pillar is just relationship. So, you know, we generally used to, you know, let's say we interviewed a very young Justin Bieber and Lady Gaga. That's how ancient we are, right? So we work with these record labels, so we kind of have a back channel if there is kind of maybe a dispute. And third is common sense. Some rights holders fundamentally, like the Oscars, the Academy Awards, will sue you. If you think about it, even Saturday Night Live, when they do a spoof of the Oscars, don't use the Oscar award because the Oscars are just militant. Yeah. So sometimes it's just like a risk-reward trade-off. But ultimately, you do have to stand your ground. And I mean, fundamentally, possibly because I was born in Iran, even though I grew up in Montreal and I'm as Canadian as they come, I view fair use as just an extension of freedom of speech. And it's just a part of, it's something that you don't want to negotiate with a rights holder to say, no, if I want to criticize you and your work, I don't need your permission. Now, you have to be careful because we do, even though if individually each video we do is fair use, as a collective, Watchmojo is a for-profit enterprise. So you want to be mindful that in the end, yeah, there's information and it's commentary and it's even educational, but it's an entertainment platform.
Is there particular industries that are tough to work at? You know, you mentioned your relationships they make with music industries. I've heard in the past some complaints about the video game industry and how they guard their IP, their intellectual property. Is there an industry that's just like, tough nut to crack when it comes to building building those relationships?
Well, ironically, music is very hard because music was also so decimated post-Napster that they're just very careful. So music is fickle. I would say video games have actually grown to be more embracing of this because they realize it's marketing. Movies are very open to it in general because they are producing these long works, spending millions of dollars producing it and then spending millions of dollars marketing it. So they view the sports are a bit more tough and certain sports more than others, right? Like if baseball, they're very protective, but if like they want to reach younger audiences, they may almost encourage a look the other way. But soccer, European football, they're going to, because the stakes are so high and they sell those rights so lucratively, they're just going to be a bit more reserved and guarded. Now, it may still be fair use, but then we as a business say, you know what, we probably don't want to bother.
Because it's not worth going through all the hassles. So
you got to pick and choose.
There are some things that you just won't touch because of that, because you don't want to deal with the hassle.
I made a decision, as much as I'm very competitive, not to pursue every opportunity and growth for growth's sake. So part of that, it's to say, you know what, do we really need to kill ourselves, for this given video, especially if our fans aren't clamoring for it. Our fans fundamentally on Watchmojo like movies and TV shows.
Continuing with Ash Karbasfrooshan, who is the founder of Watchmojo. Watchmojo, based in Montreal, one of the biggest channels on YouTube. They've got 20 million subscribers on the main channel, 35 million overall through all their verticals. And Ash, before the break, we're talking about algorithms. Now, I've covered this so much on the show because, since we started doing this show, there's been story after story of YouTube. And when it comes to videos targeted at children, right? So you've got, bad actors that are trying to get stuff to children. And we've seen stories like that. We've also seen the story of how YouTube enables conspiracy theories. YouTube enables alt-right stuff because they would just force feed you this content thanks to algorithms. Now, I think you're in a really interesting position because you're in a successful company that does, great entertaining videos. So there's nothing that's objectionable, quote unquote, about your content. And, those algorithms help you out because you watch one Watchmojo video. Well, and you watch the whole thing. YouTube's going to decide to serve you another one and another one and another one. And the more views, the better for you. So what is your take on algorithms and the mess that YouTube is in trying to make sure algorithms do more good than harm?
I appreciate the quote unquote when you mentioned. Okay, so there's a lot of layers to what you just said. One, look, I'm also, you should have mentioned, a parent of two daughters aged 11 and 9, right? So I'm not saying this to parents. I'm speaking amongst parents. I think we are all as parents sometimes taking the shortcut historically with, hey, son, here's the TV, here's a remote, go entertain yourself. And now that's kind of transferred to here's an iPad, do your own thing. We do have a responsibility to not actually just do that and just put kids on this auto, watch mode. So one is it starts with the parents. Two, I think there are things you can do, like setting up, for example, an account for your children so that the things that they watch are kind of going to be conditioning the algorithm to things that are still geared in that sandbox. Whereas if you just let them watch where you're watching, well, if last night you were watching something maybe a bit more provocative and risque, well, YouTube kind of figures that it's somebody else, but it is going to serve.
It can't be perfect.
It can't be perfect, right? Now, speaking of perfection. So we as humans in the 21st century are actually the hypocrites. We love the fact that we have these mobile devices that give us access to everything in, recorded history at our fingertips. But then we don't really want the responsibility to come with that, right? We love these platforms like YouTube and Facebook where we could say whatever we want. But then if somebody says something that we don't like, we start to complain and say, hey, what you said is hurtful to my feelings. Whereas it's like, well, you don't need to listen to that, right? So I think as a society, we're still trying to figure that out, that equilibrium between, where does my liberty end? Where does my neighbor's start? And I think some of this is just you need to be active as a parent. You can't just hand off parenting to these algorithms.
So do you think YouTube and this goes along to Facebook and Google and that kind of stuff, they should just allow everything on the site, allow it to go, and you know what, people want to post it, it's up to them to police it? Is that what you're saying?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I think that there is this fundamental mis kind of communication that we're a platform and we're not a publisher, so we are limited by these safe harbors and the Telecommunications Act and decency portions. No, I think these websites do have a responsibility. I think what they want to avoid is just this slippery slope of where does something go from just being rude, offensive satire to now hate speech. And I think their challenge is one that these are systems born out of a culture in the Bay Area where they are intended to scale. the bigger the better, right? So they want these global systems, one cookie fits all, one size fits all for everybody. And what you're seeing now with some of like YouTube coming along and saying, hey, things like hate speech, denying the Holocaust, we're not going to tolerate that. It's actually not YouTube being altruistic. It's the EU that says, hey, we have a history with the Holocaust. We don't want Holocaust deniers. So they're forcing YouTube to implement certain changes in the EU, which YouTube then says, for this, it's simpler if we apply it everywhere. So I do think that these platforms need some oversight. Now, does that oversight come from just, consumer groups? No. Does that come from the government? Hell no. Could they police themselves? They've demonstrated that they can. Now, there's a fundamental difference between Facebook and YouTube, which is owned by Google. Both of them have like a God complex. They both think that they are owners and rulers of the internet, which is basically saying of like the universe now. Yeah. Facebook, I think, fundamentally does have an evil, like sort of like think evil culture, right? I mean, Mark Zuckerberg is the love child of Darth Vader.
The proof's in the pudding, and they've made their own history, and they've had scandal after scandal. It's on them.
And it's this track record of always doing the wrong thing that is for them positive in the near term, and then saying apologies and we're sorry. YouTube, I think they try to do well, but the problem is that the executives don't know how powerful the platform is. And they're not pedophiles. They're not, neo-Nazis. They don't think the way these evildoers, so to speak, are thinking. So they're always kind of trying to chase the problem. And because these are still microorganisms that are fluid and evolving, their policies are not always constant. And that's normal because they're still evolving, right? But I think you're going to get to a place where, look, whether we like it or not, these platforms on the internet will resemble the way that television and historically newspapers and radio stations had to be kind of monitored so that it wasn't this wild
What does
west.
that mean for, the next Watchmojos, the next startups, if that happens?
So one of the reasons why I did not raise financing and stayed independent was because I always had this whispering in my ear of chase things even if you have to, I'm not saying things that are illegal, but things that I found to be unethical. So we policed ourselves, right? Like a year ago, we decided to, quotation marks, clean up the channel by having less topics that were maybe violent or, sexy.
Let me just tell you, is the scariest word in your brain demonetization? if the next time YouTube makes a change and all of a sudden your channel gets lopped into the demonetization, that'd be game over, right? So that must be such a fear, right?
It's part of the balancing act and part of the risks. And, last year, look, I'm very transparent. In the month of April, we were not demonetized, but we were taken off Google Preferred, which is like the, it's kind of like fast lane. Yeah. And we rectified that. And that's also why we had already started to clean up. And I walked into the office. I said, guys, I love you all, but how would you feel if we had to separate and 20 of us couldn't keep working? Yeah. And they were like, what is this about? And I explained to them, I said, look, I've let you guys cover whatever you want. I've given you the keys, but we can't do sexy singers because the word sexy is going to trigger.
Wow.
Exactly. But now, what I don't like about that is actually not the economics. What I don't like is that also triggered like the rise of Hitler, which we had, which is an educational. So I think that's where we went back to Google and we said, we understand you don't want us to do sexy singers because a marketer may not want sexy, but we don't like the fact that we can't also do why Nazi Germany came to be, because that's educational. And that's something that I've struggled with because in the end, I feel like society will pay a price when you start to censor educational things.
Ash, you'll come back to the show, right?
For sure, if you'll have me.
We will have you. A really interesting discussion, and there's so many interesting topics when it comes to this. But keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. I'm just glad I topped the dog segment before.
Ash Karbasfrooshan is the founder of Watchmojo and a really big channel out there on YouTube. Thanks again.